The defeat of the Spanish Armada is one of the most famous events in English history. It was arguably Queen Elizabeth's finest hour. For years she had been hailed as the English Deborah, the savior of the English people, and now it seemed that this is what she had really become. She was known Bellona, the goddess of war, and in triumph she had led her people to glory, defeating the greatest power in the 16th century world. Spain was the most powerful country in the world. Philip II ruled vast territories of land and had unparalleled wealth from the New World. England was a small country with little wealth, few friends, and many enemies. If Queen Elizabeth ever felt nervous about challenging the greatest power in the known world, she never showed it, and appeared to believe completely in the devotion and loyalty of her people. By believing in them, they believed in her. So the Spanish Armada talks about the war between Spain and England. Although relations between Spain and England had begun rather well, with Philip even proposing marriage to Elizabeth, over the 30 years since the Queen's accession, relations had deteriorated. Why did the relations deteriorate? First, because England was a Protestant country and Spain was a Roman Catholic one. 2. The Spanish made no secret of their hostility to the English Queen. This means that they showed that they hate her. They believed she was illegitimate and had no right to the English throne, and had been involved in plots to dethrone her, to get rid of her. They believe that she's illegitimate because they favor Catherine of Aragon, who was the first wife of Henry VIII and who bore Mary I. So, when he tried to get rid of Catherine of Aragon, or assumed that he has already divorced her, he married Anne Boleyn, the mother of Queen Elizabeth. So they believe that Elizabeth, the child of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, is illegitimate, and this marriage should have not been accomplished. Okay, and so they have participated in many plots to get rid of Elizabeth. Number 3, Elizabeth herself had encouraged the activities of the English pirates who plundered Philip's ships. Plundered Philip's ships means that they stole his ships as they made their way from the New World, seizing their treasures. So these are the 3 reasons showing the deterioration in the relations between Spain and England. This had angered Philip immensely, especially as the stolen treasure was used to help fund those people rebelling against his rule in the Netherlands. What made Philip angry is that when Elizabeth stole the treasures from his ships, she gives it to the people who rebel against him in the Netherlands. Next point. As early as 1585, Philip had begun to prepare a great fleet that under the Spanish commander Santa Claus would invade England. So now Philip has prepared a fleet in 1585. The commander is called Santa Claus to invade England in order to put an end to the activities of Elizabeth I. What was the aim of the Spanish Armada? At first, the aim of the Armada was to liberate, meaning to free, the captive Queen of Scots, Mary, of course, of Scots. But when Mary was executed for conspiring Elizabeth's death in 1587, Philip planned to invade England in the name of his daughter, the Infanta Isabella. So the main aim was actually to free Mary of Scots, but when she was executed, As we know, due to the Babington plot, Philip decided to change the plan and to invade England in the name of his daughter. Philip believed he had a genuine claim to the English throne. Philip believes that he should be the King of England, both by descent from John of Gaunt, because he is one of the descendants of John of Gaunt, and as Queen Mary's first husband. The purpose of the mission was to depose Elizabeth, to get rid of Elizabeth, put Mary as the first plan, but now because Mary is executed, so it's going to be putting Isabella on the throne and make England Roman Catholic once again. It was perhaps an omen, however, that from the start the Spanish faced problems. Santa Cruz, the commander, died, and his successor, the Duke of Medina Sidonia, was not at all suited to the post. He was not capable of commanding this fleet. He had little faith in the enterprise. He didn't believe in this war, and also he had little experience. He begged Philip to release him from the charge, but the king was adamant. Adamant means that he insisted. The enterprise had received another setback, disadvantage, when Francis Drake and his men had sailed to the coast of Spain and destroyed many of the Spanish ships at Cadiz. Queen Elizabeth had heard mutterings, had heard sayings, people talking of the intended invasion of England by Spain for some time. She was not, however, at first concerned about the rumors. She didn't care. She didn't pay attention. She didn't believe that Spain would invade England. She had heard such rumors for almost 30 years and easily dismissed them. Her counselors were not so dismissive. Her counselors cared about these rumors. They were afraid that Spain was going to attack. It eventually became clear to Elizabeth, however, that this time the Spanish were really going to send the fleet against England. Although the Queen had spent considerable amounts of money funding the Netherlands campaign, she now employed all her efforts in raising funds to ensure that when the Spanish fleet came, England would be prepared. So she devoted all of the money, in addition to giving money to the rebels in the Netherlands. She has now prepared England for the war. Despite numerous setbacks the Spanish had received, they were determined to set While English soldiers and sailors fought for England's liberty, Queen Elizabeth made her way to Tilbury. She was not going to sit trembling, meaning frightened, inside a guarded palace while her people fought, but was going to go to the coast of the battle and live or die with them. So the Queen is a courageous person. She is not frightened. She does not hide in her palace. No, she joins her people either to live or to die with them. Like a true warrior, Queen Elizabeth, upon a white horse, inspected her soldiers and made what was possibly her most famous speech of all. She delivered a speech where she encouraged her army, her fleet, and they began to attack. The Queen's confidence in God and her people was rewarded. In the English Channel, the Spanish were suffering a humiliating defeat. The weather was dreadful, with the wind and rain against them, and they were not able to compete with the superior English ships and war tactics. So the Spanish were not able to defend themselves. In addition to the tactics of the English ships, God was helping the English. It seemed like that God was helping them because the wind and rain was against the Spanish. The only way back to Spain was the perilous journey around the coast of Scotland, and many a Spaniard never saw his home country again. The battle was over. The English. The Queen and her people were jubilant, were very happy. No more were they a second-rate sea power, for they had conquered the fleet of the mighty Spanish Empire. So they became number one after defeating the Spanish fleet. A Thanksgiving service was held at St. Paul's Cathedral for the delivery of the country, and a medal was struck with the words, "God blew, and they were scattered," inscribed on it. So the English people believed that God was on their side, that the God blew, okay, and so the Spanish fleet was scattered, meaning that they were spread. They believed that the storm that had besieged the Spanish ships was no ordinary storm, but the work of a Protestant God. But amongst the joy, there was considerable sorrow for the Queen. The Queen was upset despite the fact that they won the war. Why? Why was she upset? Because the Earl of Leicester, if you remember Robert Dudley, who had been her companion since her accession, and who she undoubtedly loved, had died unexpectedly not long after sharing with her the great victory. The Queen was devastated and secluded herself for a while. In the Armada portrait, she reputedly wears the pearls he left her in his will. So Robert Dudley has left pearls for Queen Elizabeth in his will. But people needed her, and despite her grief, the Queen participated fully in the celebrations at St. Paul's. "God bless you, my people," she called out, and her people called a thousand blessings on her. So now the English are happy. They became first-rate sea power after defeating the Spanish Armada. Although King Philip sent other fleets against England in the 1590s, none was as significant or as threatening as that of the Great Armada of 1588, and none has captured the imagination of successive generations as much. So this is the end of the Spanish Armada. This is very important. You have to write a short note on the Spanish Armada. You are going to focus on the reasons of the deterioration of the relation between Spain and England, in addition to the main aim of the Spanish Armada. Thank you.